Good morning. I'm Taylor Combluzia, a mining analyst here at Red Cloud Securities. We'd like to extend our thanks to Newsfile for sponsoring this session. Our next presenters are Chris Wright, who's the chairman and CEO, and Doug Cavey, who's the vice president of corporate development at Defiance Silver Corp. Defiance Silver is a Mexico-based silver, gold, copper, and polymetallic exploration and development company actively engaged in advancing two major projects in Mexico, including the Zacatecas silver projects and the Topal copper gold project. Chris and Doug, you'll have 15 minutes for the presentation, and then we'll have a 5-minute Q&A session afterwards. Please take it away.
Great, thank you, Taylor, and thank you everybody for joining us today and hearing the Defiance Silver story. I know that a number of you are already investors in the company, and we thank you for your support. As with all of these presentations, we will be making forward-looking statements, so please be aware of that. As Taylor mentioned off the get-go, we do have two advanced projects in the company's portfolio. One is our Zacatecas Silver project, located in the state of Zacatecas, right smack dab in the middle of Mexico. That is the legacy asset for Defiance Silver, and came to the company with a small starter resource of about 17 million ounces of silver. We have full ownership or optionality to acquire full ownership of all of the properties in that portfolio in the camp. We are actively drilling the property, and I'll let Doug speak to some of the work that's been going on there most recently. We've augmented the initial property package over the years. In the summer of 2018, we did a transaction with Mag Silver to acquire their property in the Zacatecas camp. And then in the fall or December of 2020, we signed an agreement with Pan American Silver to acquire their Zacatecas land holdings. We call that Lucita. And that effectively tripled our land holdings in the camp. We're now the second largest property owners with about 25% of the historic mining district. Our Topal project is a very different animal. It's also advanced. It has a pre-feasibility study on it from 2012, a PEA that was done in 2013, and then updated in 2017. It has a measured and indicated resource on the project of 1.8 million ounces of gold and 800 million pounds of copper. We currently own that 100% outright. And in early 2021, we struck a deal with the vendors of that project to more than double our land holdings around the project. And in December of 2020, we signed an agreement with the vendors to repurchase the royalty on the property. So both what we believe are legitimate standalone company making projects. We're starting from a very robust resource base. We think there's good upside at both projects through the drill bit, and we are actively executing on our strategy to do just that. When I first joined the company as chairman about almost 3 years ago now, and then shortly thereafter took over the role of CEO, the first thing that we needed to do was a complete teardown of the company's assets, get an objective view of what we had and how best to move them forward. So to do that, that's where Doug and the Orquest team came into the equation. We were fortunate enough to attract them to our company to do this work for us, and they liked it so much that they've agreed to stay on and be our team, a geological team, to move these assets forward. So we have a very, very strong, successful group with a lot of experience in Mexico. We're thrilled to have them with us. I think it goes without saying, most exploration companies or precious metals exploration companies will tell you that they have a high degree of sensitivity to underlying commodity prices. I would be surprised if they didn't. We do. We will run you through the numbers, and we'll let you decide for yourselves how good that leverage is. We think it's quite interesting. We do have a very solid shareholder base. My firm, Windermere Capital, is still the largest shareholder of the company and has been since we got involved in 2014. Over the last year and a half or so, we've had some very successful financings. We brought in a number of new institutional shareholders. So between my firm, institutional shareholders and insiders, accounts for about 40% ownership of the company. So good, solid core group of shareholders to build, for the future. And the interesting thing from my perspective, having been involved in Defiance since, as I said, since 2014 as an investor, is the activity level of the company. The company is actively drilling. There's lots going on. We just finished 15 holes on a newly acquired property from Pan American. So we expect it to be lots of news flow to come when we get these results back from the labs. The financial situation at Defiance is very strong. As I said, we had some successful financings. We had a number of warrants that were exercised over the last couple of years. We still have about $14 million, a little more than $14 million Canadian in the treasury. Currently have about 220 million shares outstanding. And the stock price is trading somewhere in the low 60s right now, which is off from the last financing, which was done in June of 2021 at 90 cents. So that'll give you a good intro to the corporate structure, and I'll turn it over to Doug right now to run you through our two projects.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and thank you to the team at Red Cloud for putting together another excellent conference and set of meetings. So I'm sure at this point, those of you who aren't too new to this story have heard a lot of what we've been doing for the last couple of years here. But just to paint the broad picture of what is Mexico and what is silver and why we are doing what we're doing here in Zacatecas. We are in arguably the world's most prolific silver mining jurisdiction. We're 35 kilometers away, depending where on our properties. It's even closer from the world's largest primary silver mining complex at Fresnillo. And right next door to Fresnillo is MAG Silver's Juanicipio mine. It's a joint venture between MAG Silver and Fresnillo. That will become, over the next 12 months, the world's largest primary silver mine, eclipsing their neighbor Fresnillo. And we're about 35 kilometers away in a 1 billion ounce historic silver camp ourselves. And why that's important outside of the actual trend of mineralization, which hosts super deposits like La Colorada, and of course Fresnillo, and extends up into Durango and south into San Luis. The Zacatecas camp, as a historical 1 billion ounce silver camp, had actually produced more silver than the Fresnillo district up until the 1960s. In the 1960s, Fresnillo was out of ore, and as a result of pretty basic exploration, but driven, discovery-focused exploration, drilling, surface mapping, physics, all that early stage work, they were able to turn the lights back on. And then in the early 2000s, MAG Silver recognized that there were very productive structures that had never been tested as a result of surface mapping, surface geophysics, kind of a picture. They drilled out the Juanicipio, and then subsequently the rest of the veins, Valdecañas, and then all of the veins that you can hear about to date. And that turned them into a 6.5 or 7 billion ounce silver camp. So we like to think of this camp as Fresnillo from the 1960s because that basic exploration had never been done. Since then, since the 1975 or 1973 was when, 1973 or 75 was when they found the Santo Niño vein at Fresnillo, and that's what turned the lights back on. But since then, really, there's been a paucity of exploration in our camp, and a billion ounce silver camp is really nothing to shake a stick at. Since then, or in more modern times, we've seen large operations go into production in our camp. Capstone's Cozamin mine recently got a large streaming agreement from Wheaton Precious Metals, so a lot of modern, large capital investment into the district. That's one of their flagship operations, and that's over 1,000 meters deep into that mineral system, whilst in the early 2000s, that was still a small, classic, high-grade silver mine, and now they've shown that these camp have legs testing these productive structures, and that's exactly what we've done. We know that discovery-focused geoscience works. We have the same crustal position as Fresnillo, and we've been drilling and doing that, pretty straightforward but modern exploration in the district. We have a variety of ownership of this asset, but clear path to total ownership. And because of that, we have been able to really be very dynamic in our exploration, in that we can see our clear path to what we want to do here. And that is outline a large mineral system in and around the very productive structures that had historically in the camp produced 1 billion ounces of silver. The Santo Niño discovery in 1975, that was 3 meters of 1,000 grams silver, 1.6 grams gold, and about 1% combined lead zinc. which when we first looked at the land package, we had seen that those grades, that width, that tenor of mineralization had been overlooked in historical drilling. And so we began to model that, map that, and test that with the drill in the main San Nicasio deposit. That main San Nicasio deposit is a 17 million ounce silver deposit. It's tabled to about 100, some places 150 meters of depth. What we wanted to understand what the controlling structures are of the mineralization, why were mines located where they were on the historical Veta Grande vein mines, and then elsewhere in the district where those structures, productive parts of the district were. So as a result of surface mapping, oriented core drilling, geochemical analysis, looking at element geochemistry surface, we began to test these structures, and we were able to hit the main Veta Grande vein system about 250 meters below the current resource estimate, and continue to be an active and very productive mineralizing events at that depth. And you can see from those photos also a variety of styles and phases of mineralization, both sort of massive sulfide style mineralization, but as well your classic vein style epithermal mineralization in that bottom photo there. And why that's important for us is that both in the vertical profile of mineralization, we have shown that the system is active up to 250 meters below the current resource estimate, but it is also around existing infrastructure such as underground workings or open pit workings, and a host of very usable surface infrastructure that you would expect from such a well-known and active mining district with almost 500-year mining history. There's surface power lines. Of course, you can see underneath that that drill hole, which drilled the highest grade mineralization the company had drilled to date. We're drilling underneath the power line next to an open pit. You can drive to the property on a paved road. It's 6 kilometers from the city center. We're in between us and the city center is Capstone's Cosamine mine. So there is a lot of really usable and good infrastructure and optionality with this property. But what we wanted to know, and what I think every explorer wants to know, is why is the mineralization there? What were the old timers going after? And is there a productive mineral system outside of what historical mining was? And there is. So our current plan here is, of course, to continue to define the limits of mineralization here, and then we'll look to what does that look like for shell, or what does it look like for the mineral system, and whether the optionality is usable of the extensive underground workings that are in place there. It's a big system in this part of the camp. It's very active, lots of styles of mineralization, lots of pulses of mineralization. And when you do get a handle on the controlling structure, it's very high grade mineralization up to, in this section here, up to 1,400, almost 1,500 grams per ton silver, but also wide widths of mineralization, 20+ meter veins that we've encountered in to date. You always want to get as much land as possible if you want to make it an exploration camp. And I think that really leans on the mag silver thesis that we approach with our desire to put together a mineral district. When Mag Silver stepped into Juanicipio, they acquired as much ground as they could. It was pretty tightly laced up from Fresnillo and Peñoles in the history of that camp. And the Zacatecas district is a little bit different. There's a lot of individual surface owners. And so we spent a lot of time using our database that we acquired from Mag Silver to look for what was the most prospective ground in workable land size positions. And that led us to the acquisition, or the option to acquire Pan American Silver's Lucita property. So Veta Grande is a 150 million ounce historical silver producer. The Veta Grande vein system itself, not our property, but the whole Veta Grande vein system. We control about 60% of that, the historical mine. But outside of that, of course, as I said, a 1 billion ounce silver camp. The Lucita project, at least the central Lucita project, where we've recently completed 5,000 meters of first pass, call it grassroots reconnaissance drilling, had never seen a drill hole before. Pretty remarkable to step into a 1 billion ounce silver camp and acquire a very sizable land position that has never seen any modern exploration. And we saw the opportunity there. And I think we've really shown that there's a lot of legs to what we feel is an emerging vein system in this historical camp. The Lucita project itself hosts the on-strike extension of Zacatecas Silver's Paunoco deposit, where they're actively drilling. That's in the north. And then the central Lucia property, where we've been recently drilling. We started drilling in November 2021, early November, and then we completed 5,000 meters of drilling a couple weeks ago. So I think we got a good first pass on there to give us the follow-up on what we'll do in the next steps of the exploration campaign. The property itself, the Lucida Central property itself, that core block there in the center of our land position, it hosts what we call the Palenque vein system. It's a series of veins, about 20+ kilometers of vein strike length at surface, very high grade surface mineralization. We've extensively mapped this property. We've done some follow-up geochemistry. Pan American did a good job of first pass geochemistry on this part of the block. And then since then, we've done 13 drill holes, about 1 kilometer kind of centers across the vein system, and then 2 holes in Beta Taurus, which is another vein system just south of the Palenque vein system. The surface geochemistry is great. The mapping is excellent. You can work this ground really well. There's roads, power. Crossing between the two properties is a Mexican autopista, a toll highway. And so infrastructure is great here. And we'll wait for the results to come in. We've got 10 to 15 holes in the lab. And as they come in, we'll design our next phase of follow-up drilling. We know that discovery-focused geoscience works. And all in all, we're trying to add ounces to an already advanced asset with our fully financed exploration program. Our second project, as Chris says, 2 standalone projects. Our second project's Topal, 4.5 hours southwest of Guadalajara. It's a large asset, 1.8 million ounces of gold, 813 million pounds of copper measured and indicated from a 2012 PFS. We own it 100%. We also entered into an option to repurchase 2.5% NSR on this property. So about 60,000 meters of drilling, and that led to some pretty positive economics on the 2017 PEA. Post-tax NPV at $12.50 gold and $2.50 copper, $169 million. 24% post-tax IRR and a 2.3-year payback of a $214 million capex, initial capex. At $1,500 gold and $3 copper, post-tax NPV doubles to $345 million. And of course, the underlying economics of that 2.5% NSR do positively affect that post-tax NPV number as well. Our thesis is this can demonstrate that it could be a 100,000 ounce a year, 10-year producer by adding ounces to the back end of the mine life, not by taking ounces from the front end and pushing them to the back end. So where are we going to pull a rabbit out of the hat? Modeling in the last year has demonstrated there's 2 distinct blocks of mineralization on this property, a more porphyry style mineralization in the west block and more epithermal or higher grade gold silver mineralization in the center block. The west block is what we feel is the de-risked or the lowest risk potential resource build-out, tonnage build-out on the Topal project. That from the 2012 PFS was the highest value NSR rock ton on the property. The approximate current base of the pit shell design as the 2017 PEA determines ends in inferred resources, ends in mineralization, and the deepest hole drilled on that property is 188 meters of 1.04 grams per ton gold and 0.38% copper. And that part of the system is open at depth. It sits on a major crustal scale fault. And we feel the opportunity to add resources there, both by conversion of inferred ounces, but also increasing the total volume of mineralization by drilling the system to its total vertical profile. It is low risk, high opportunity resource building potential. The other targets that we have, as I mentioned, more epithermal style, the different kind of flavor of mineralization there in the center block, are high-grade gold, high-grade silver targets, look to be sort of structurally controlled, maybe high sulfidation or intermediate sulfidation style mineralization, outboard to porphyry mineralization, kind of your classic model of mineralization here. When those are hit by drilling, they're up to 25 grams gold and 565 grams silver. So 7 zones that we've identified, 12 early first pass high impact drill holes to both add volume to the resource estimate, but also testing these outboard porphyry, high-grade epithermal style mineralization, adding to what we think is the building geologic and deposit model at Topal. So robust resource base, as we demonstrated at Topal, 1.8 million ounces of gold, 813 million pounds of copper, and significant exploration potential for both assets. And we're doing that right now. People who cumulatively have over 100 years of operating experience in Mexico, taking grassroots projects through to M&A and mine development. Strong sensitivity to the underlying commodities, kind of a cliche for exploration companies, but every $250 increase in the price of gold adds $100 million to the post-tax NPV of the Topal project. but 40% management key shareholders, so very aligned, very philosophically aligned, and we're doing it right now. We've done over 10,000 meters of drilling at the Zacatec projects in the last 12 months. We just completed 5,000 meters of drilling on the Lucita asset, and then we'll look to follow up on that in 2022.
Great. Thank you very much, Chris and Doug. We do have to wrap it up there. We are over time, but thank you very much for the great presentation.